This is what I want to revert to, okay? Before we get into any other aspect, right? Top lane was another area that I personally found was going to be very interesting in this series, because as much as everyone says, at the moment, at least in the teams left, like, yeah, Khan is the best. Obviously, he brings that whole fucking baggage from the past. Yet I will say it doesn't really look like it's shown up so far. Like, I noticed, actually, a lot of the analysts got really hot on Canna this tournament, actually. It feels like he got a lot of props, where if you look last year, I always thought he was a bit overrated then. I mean, I thought Korean tops were pretty weak back then. What did you think of top lane matchup in the series? It looked like it was a lot of the champions you expect to see, but I will say, Khan pulled the fucking Xiaohu and brought the Lucian.
Yeah, so that was like a quite like good thing to see, because I think that's like 2 games he's like played on it, and he looked pretty competent, so you're always going to be able to threaten with it in draft. I actually thought Canna, outside of like Xiaohu, was actually like the best performing top laner. Then it would be like Can. But in this series, I think Canna had some really, really, really bad games. Some really, really, really like terrible games, making very, very poor decisions. I think it was Canna's own Jace. It was Canna's own Jace game where he like suicide and died into like Showmaker and basically threw the entire game like on that one thing, because randomly in the series for like 2 games, T1 decided that they were going to play the top side and try and win that way rather than continuing to do what had already been winning them games. And when they were playing next to Canna, he wasn't protecting his leads. It wasn't, the gold that was being pumped into him just wasn't anywhere near as efficient as it was when it was on Guma. I feel like he had a really underperforming series, but in context, he hadn't actually really played against many people to like push him a bit further. Yes. And I think he wasn't able to, like, the natural advantages he'd been getting and being a better laner against even people like Flange and stuff, Can basically like took them away, and so you now need to get Owner to come up to his lane and fix the lane for him or gank for him to be able to get an advantage.
Yes. And here's the thing, because I actually do know a little bit about your particular accent, mate. I could make a mega tongue twister for you where it's like canna, but he is a canny lad. You know, like I could make a fucking next level one for you if I wanted, but we won't. We'll move on. So, like, here's the question though. Obviously, let's be real. The entire narrative of this tournament, because T1 at this point in time, in terms of the people who remain from the championship eras at Worlds, is Faker. Obviously, it goes without saying that was the main storyline people built up, because they either want it to be like, oh, Faker's going to win another Worlds. By the way, you are on insane copium if that was really your take, and or you are Fionn, in which case, shout out, hi. Or the angle I noticed most people were going with is like, you know, is Showmaker the next Faker, and is kind of like he going to become the next dynastical player and win a bunch of Worlds, right? So what did you think of mid lane matchup? Because I noticed that this was the one where before quarters, the whole storyline was, it doesn't even matter if Chovy's a better laner, because Faker's sort of figured out how to play to the side lanes, and he's kind of like being sort of like fucking season 4 high or something. It's not about lane. But I say, after the Chovy series against Hanlo Eve, a lot of people were like, maybe he can even just lane. How did you think the mid lane matchup went?
So apart from, I think, one game where I think it was maybe the very first game. I'm not too sure. I think it was the first game. Showmaker styled, in my opinion, all over Faker. Basically, Showmaker is like the win condition for his team, and you can see it with the champion picks. Faker's playing like these scaling picks they likes, like the Rise and the Azir, and every other Showmaker is getting LeBlanc, I think, and Syndra, and he is just absolutely styling on the map. He is killing so many like champions, like 8-9 kills a game. He's like not dying, not giving his leads away. They're drafting these really, really threatening 2v2, 2v1 mid lane picks with the Lee Sin and the LeBlanc, and they're just barreling down on to Faker's head. I actually think Faker had quite a poor series, to be honest. I think he actually, he was really bad in those last 2 games. The Rise game where he just kept on burning his flash and just getting ran at and just through the entire series, and then the Azir game where he's playing Azir into Zoe with like all this long range poke, and he just isn't going to get to team fight. I understand why he wants these like heroes, because team fighting is like one of the last areas where Faker is like somewhat elite, because he is just such a creative and veteran player. Sure. But he's just, Showmaker is just what Faker was years ago. He is the person that you give him the LeBlanc pick, you give him the picks with agency, and he just consumes the entire map. Your map just shrinks, your jungle quadrants shrink, and he just takes over the full game.
Yeah, I mean, that was another area I had my concerns about this series, is that as much as that strategy sounds great, like, oh, just play like inside out on the map and it'll just help the other players in the team. It's like, first of all, like realistically, Kanna's not better than Khan necessarily as an overall player. So like you've really only got one lane that you could potentially super duper get ahead. And then also, like, as you say, like if the strength of Fakers in team fighting, like Showmaker might be the best team fighting mid in the world. Like it's a pretty decent shout at this point in time. And then also, because this is the part I think people overlooked, that style sounds great, but you have to have the champions that you can do that with if you're Faker. And first of all, there was no TF in this series because T1 themselves had to ban it when they were on that side. And then secondly, the kinds of champions you had to take, Lysandra, Rise, like you're just leaving up basically, as you say, some of the picks that like Showmaker isn't just going to like win the, he's going to smash you. Like you saw some of those games, mate. I'd love to go and check how many kills he had in that series. He was having some bonkers games, right?